With his distinct accent, rugged weathered features, and shock of white hair, he was Hollywood's archetypal mid-20th century tough guy. That's right, today we're going to look at the lifetimes and campaigns of gritty acting superstar Lee Marvin. Marvin's ribbon bar consists of a Wound Award, Unit Award and 3 Service or Campaign medals, one of which has 2 Campaign, Battle or Service stars. Lamont Waltman Marvin Jr., known as Lee Marvin, was born in New York City on the 19th of February 1924. Like Jimmy Stewart, who we have covered previously, his father was a World War I veteran. Marvin was one of 2 siblings, having an older brother. After World War I, his father, who was in the US Corps of Engineers, left the military and became an advertising executive in New York City. Not a natural bookworm and with a rebellious streak, Marvin spent much of his spare time out in the woods hunting and was expelled from multiple boarding schools, once, reportedly, for throwing a roommate from a second-floor window. He finally ended up at St. Leo's College Prep School in Florida. With the US entering the war in December 1941, Marvin left school the year after. Aged 18, he enlisted in the US Marines Reserve in August 1942. He was sent to Paris Island for basic training. Interestingly, his father, who was obviously a veteran of the First World War, initially disapproved of Marvin's decision to join the military. Looking at Marvin's service records, it appears, perhaps following in his father's footsteps, he put in a first preference for the engineers line duty and a second choice infantry, but was instead, upon finishing basic training, assigned to the quartermaster's or supply department around December 1942 and put on a 12-week course. This could have been due to him stating prior work experience as a mail clerk or clerk in 1941. That job to me looks like it was a summer or evening job whilst he was at school, or perhaps during one of his bouts of being expelled he took up some temporary work. I did also read he did decide to drop out of high school but then re-enlisted soon afterwards, realising he needed the qualifications in order to get into the Marine Corps. I guess any of these could have been a possibility. I'm sure many veteran viewers of this channel will know the good old feeling of not being able to get your first preference or getting BS'd into a specific trade or branch by the good old military recruiter. One day I'll share my experience. But to me, for Marvin, the modern day rough equivalent, I would imagine, would be stating that you stack shelves at either Asda or Walmart during the evening and then got pushed into logistics by the military recruiter who had a quota to fill. During his initial training, Marvin also qualified as a sharpshooter and bayonet expert. I guess that hunting experience in places like the Everglades paid off. After a period in the stores as a QM clerk in California and given a temporary rank of corporal for the post, Marvin then managed to request a transfer to the infantry in the summer of 1943, ending up in the 24th Marine Regiment, specialising as a scout sniper in D Company, 4th Tank Battalion. Marvin deployed with the 4th Marine Division to take the Marshall Islands in Operation Flintlock. During this period, the major ground component of the active US Marine Reserves was the 4th Marine Division, Fleet Marine Force. During World War II, this division's combat service was exemplary. In the space of one short year, they had participated in 4 major amphibious operations and earned 2 presidential citations. During his World War II service, Marvin would serve with this division. The Marshall Island chain consisted of 5 islands, 29 atolls, and numerous reefs. The Japanese had dispersed their forces throughout the islands, but had main bases on 6 atolls and garrisons on other locations throughout the chain. Operation Flintlock and Operation Catchpole had the objective of capturing Japanese bases at Kwajalein, Eniwetok and Majuro. Marvin was involved in operations focusing on Kwajalein and Majuro. As a scout, Marvin's role would have been primarily intelligence gathering and reconnaissance. Infiltrating a beach area in small teams prior to D-Day assaults, Marvin's unit would conduct surveillance of the area, assess enemy strength and fortifications, and potentially capture personnel for interrogation. As the main force attack progressed from D-Day, the unit would observe enemy movements and positions from concealed locations. This would provide critical information to their colleagues. In addition, they would support the line infantry by using long-range sniper rifles to eliminate high-value targets, disrupt enemy operations, and destroy equipment such as communications gear or lightly armoured vehicles. The Battle of Kwajalein was fought between the 31st of January and the 3rd of February 1944. This was the main Japanese base on the archipelago. Employing the hard-learned lessons of the Battle of Tarawa, the US forces launched a successful twin assault on the main islands of Kwajalein in the south and Roy Namor in the north. The Japanese defenders put up a stiff resistance, although outnumbered and underprepared. The determined defence of Roy Namor left only 51 survivors of an original garrison of 3,500. Only 264 out of 10,000 Japanese involved in the battle surrendered. It seems Marvin survived this ordeal physically unscathed. Total casualties for both the Gilbert and Marshall Islands campaigns for the Americans were over 5,000 killed and 6,700 wounded. During the whole campaign, Marvin conducted reconnaissance of over 20 beaches in his scouting capacity. After the Marshall Islands campaign, in March 1944, it looks like Marvin was rotated back into the line infantry. He joined I Company, 24th Marine Regiment as a rifleman. He and the 4th Marine Division would then go on the next campaign after a spot of R&R and decompression in Maui, Hawaii. I can just imagine a high number of bar brawls there between the services in that confined space with all those bootnecks, leathernecks, sailors and army letting off steam. No doubt the Navy came on top. On a more serious note, there was continued tension in the Pacific Theatre throughout World War II between the US Marines and the Army. This was due to a variety of factors, but really it can be boiled down to three main elements. The first were cultural differences. The Marines prided themselves on being expeditionary and amphibious warfare specialists. The Army took a more conventional approach to warfare. Therefore, they had very different doctrinal practices. The Marines viewed the Army as too cautious, whereas the Army viewed the Marines as too aggressive and needed to see wasting casualties sometimes on operations. The second factor was competition over resources. The Marines viewed that the Army got priority in logistics. So when all the new equipment or all the new gear came out and supplies, they saw that the Army got it first, and that caused resentment. And the third factor was public perception. Because of the media focus on the Marines, say at Guadalcanal and other areas, the Army believed they were getting pushed back in the spotlight. So whenever they went home, Army soldiers would feel that they never got the proper attention or recognition that the Marines got in the Pacific Theatre. So again, that led to a bit of hostility and conflict. On the 2nd of May 1944, the 4th Marine Division set out to sea again to participate in final exercise manoeuvres, which were conducted along with the 2nd Marine Division at Ma'alaya Bay, Maui. The entire exercise was designed to parallel as closely as possible the forthcoming operation, which was only known to senior officers. Final shore leave was granted in Honolulu after the exercise finished on May 20th. By the 29th of May 1944, the division, now packed with its final munitions and supplies, as well as thousands of young men, including Marvin, were once again at sea, on their way to combat. Once the convoy got underway, orders were then opened, and it was announced Saipan was the intended target. It looks like on the 5th of June 1944, Marvin got into a spot of bother with the military authorities. Marvin got into trouble on two accounts. Number one, leaving a post before being properly relieved, and number two, disobedience of a lawful order of a superior officer. After all the action on the marshals, perhaps he just snapped when given some pointless guard duty task on a ship when they were preparing for the invasion of Saipan. That's just speculation on my part. Who knows? The Battle of Saipan, fought from 15th of June to the 9th of July 1944, was a pivotal moment in World War II. Saipan was strategically vital because its location allowed American long-range bombers to reach Japan and return without refueling. Both Saipan in July and Guam in August would play crucial roles for B-29 Superfortress bombers. This is where Charles Bronson flew out on bombing raids over Japan as a tail gunner. Maybe that's worth a video in the future. Interestingly, speaking of Bronson and Marvin, Lee Marvin and Charles Bronson had a notable clash during the filming of The Dirty Dozen in 1967. The tension arose from Marvin's drinking habits, which sometimes disrupted the production. Being a Marine, I guess Marvin liked to go on the occasional bender. However, there is a more serious side to this proclivity for drinking, which we will go into a bit later. The filming incident involved Marvin being intoxicated during a high-pressure scene where he was supposed to drive a vehicle across a bridge whilst explosions were all kicking off. Bronson, known for his no-nonsense attitude, was furious when Marvin showed up late and drunk, leading to a heated confrontation. I'm not sure I would have wanted to get on the wrong side of Bronson, but then again, Marvin was also a tough guy. Maybe the film crew should have been awarded a unit citation themselves for keeping those two bruisers apart. For the Battle of Saipan, the US deployed around 71,000 troops, while Japan had approximately 31,000 soldiers defending the island. There are also around 25,000 Japanese civilians living on the island during the battle. An interesting factoid about this battle itself was that Japanese forces conducted one of the largest banzai charges of the Pacific War. The plan of attack for the northern troops and landing force called for the 4th Division and 2nd Division of Marines to land abreast on D-Day on Saipan with the 27th Army Division in reserve. The landing zone was to be centred around the town of Chiran Kanawa on the lower western side of the island. The northern beaches were the 2nd Divisions. South were the 4th Divisions, Blue 1, Blue 2, Yellow 1, Yellow 2 and Yellow 3. The initial objective assigned to the 2nd Division was the capture of Mount Tapocho, which rose to a height of over 1,500 feet and dominated the entire island. The 4th Division was given the primary objective of seizing Aslito Airfield, Saipan's main airbase. On D-Day +1 on the 17th of June 1944, the 24th Regiment was part of the assault, consisting of multiple regimental combat teams, attempting to expand the initial beachhead and seize an objective known as the O1 line, a key Japanese defensive position. The Marines were aided by airstrikes and naval gunfire. Under intense fire from heavy Japanese weapons, the attack moved forward, and by 1730 the division was dug in generally along the O1 line, except on the left flank. During that assault, Marvin was shot by a sniper and wounded. He was evacuated from the island the next day and transferred to the US Fleet Hospital on about a week later on the 26th of June, spending time receiving treatment at Guadalcanal. In a letter to his parents, he described being hit in the left buttock just below the belt line. Marvin was pinned down by a Japanese sniper who initially shot him in the foot, then also narrowly missed his nose. Unable to move for fear of being shot down by the sniper who was targeting him, he was then hit again, leaving an 8-inch gash in his buttock. Finally, Marvin was able to move to safety. Initially assessed as taking 4 to 5 months for the wound to recover, Marvin was transferred back to the US. After nearly a year of recurring pain and treatment, much of it in Boston, Marvin was given a medical discharge from the Marines in July 1945. The Battle of Saipan, eventually won by the Americans at a bloody cost, was a turning point, paving the way for the liberation of the Philippines and bringing the war closer to Japan's doorstep. The vast majority of Japanese soldiers were either killed or took their own lives. Many civilians followed suit in the latter, terrified by false propaganda put out stating the Americans would do all sorts of beastly things to them and their families. Following his discharge, like many servicemen from all nations during that era, Marvin struggled initially to adjust and found the transition to civilian life difficult. According to reports, he also likely suffered a modern-day form of PTSD. A lucky break when working as an assistant plumber filling in for a sick actor led him to being struck by the acting bug, which he saw as a therapeutic outlet. He signed on as an actor, and the rest is acting history. Marvin credited the Marines in installing him resilience and self-reliance. He later stated, "It was the Marines who taught me how to act. After that, pretending to be rough wasn't so hard. As soon as people see my face on a movie screen, they know two things. I'm not going to get the girl, and second, I'll get a cheap funeral before the picture is over." In his later years, Marvin had a series of health problems. This was exacerbated by his heavy drinking and smoking, likely brought about as a result of his experiences in the Pacific. He passed away from a heart attack at the relatively younger age of 63. He took more pride in being a Marine than in his acting career. Rather than electing for an extravagant Hollywood-style funeral, instead, he was buried with full military honours as simple PFC Lee Marvin at Arlington National Cemetery. In summary for Lee Marvin, we have a Purple Heart, Presidential Unit Citation, American Campaign Medal, Asiatic Pacific Campaign Medal, and World War II Victory Medal. He would have also retrospectively been awarded a Navy Combat Action Ribbon, which was introduced in 1969. I've seen Wikipedia has stated that he received a Navy Commendation Medal with V device. However, I see no confirmation other than that what looks like he did receive a letter of appreciation from the CO of the 4th Tank Battalion. A letter of appreciation was a formal recognition of commendable service or actions often issued by a commanding officer. While it carried significant value as an acknowledgement of a Marine's contributions, it did not hold the same official status or precedence as a military medal or decoration. Marvin also received a Unit Commendation Award. World War II veterans Jimmy Stewart and Lee Marvin starred together in the classic Western film The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall and hear them swapping stories in the bar after filming. Hopefully Marvin got on better with Stewart than he did with Charlie Bronson and there was no bar fights or chairs flying around. Much of the military information for this campaign I primarily drew from the 4th Marine Division in World War II by First Lieutenant John C. Chapin, issued by the History and Museums Division Headquarters, first printed in 1945. Another great source was the National Archives Catalogue website, which displays Marvin's official personnel file. Thanks for watching. I hope you found some value from this, and I'll see you in the next one.